Revealed. How one black housekeeper discovered an incredible cure the 20 doctors missed. The sun hung low in the sky, casting sweltering rays over the suburban streets of Atlanta. Eleanor, a devoted housekeeper, wiped her brow as she tackled yet another chore. Her heart held a heavier burden: her aging mother, Lucy, who had fought the shadows of diabetes for years. Every day, Eleanor watched her mother's spirit flicker like a candle in the wind. But beyond the hardships, there was her son Malik, a bright spark of hope with dreams of attending a prestigious university. He was the picture of resilience, balancing his studies with the weight of family loyalty. It was during the usual dusting and scrubbing at the home of Mrs. Dunbar, an elderly widow, that Eleanor stumbled upon a treasure. Tucked away in a corner, coated in cobwebs, lay a collection of ancient herbal books. The musty pages whispered secrets of natural remedies, and as Eleanor flipped through, her breath caught in her throat. One entry stood out: an herbal method for managing diabetes. It felt like a lifeline thrown into the turbulent sea of her mother's illness. Eager and nervous, Eleanor dove into research, her excitement blooming. This could be the breakthrough she desperately needed. But when she bravely approached her mother's doctors, a wall of doubt greeted her. What does a housekeeper know about medicine? They dismissed, leaving her feeling small, the sting of their words sharper than any diagnosis. The 20 doctors who had seen her mother brushed her claims aside with condescending smiles. Each shrug and eye roll pierced her heart, igniting a fire of indignation that she struggled to control. In the waiting room, the air felt thick with tension as Malik glanced at his mother, caught in a web of emotions. He felt torn, a tight knot in his stomach. He wanted to fight for her, a mother who had sacrificed everything, but he also yearned for the bright future within the walls of academia, a world that often felt out of reach for families like theirs. "Mom, don't lose hope," he whispered, determination spilling from his eyes. It was a promise to stand by her side, a commitment to navigate this uncertain path together. Eleanor's heart swelled with love, but the societal barriers loomed large and daunting. Despite the hesitance of doctors, Eleanor's community rallied behind her, igniting a movement for recognition of her discovery. Yet just as hope dawned, a local health crisis erupted. The very remedy she believed could heal her mother was now in demand, sweeping through their neighborhood like wildfire. Families faced the stark reality of illness, heightening the urgency of Eleanor's quest and forcing her to confront the stigma attached to her identity within the healthcare system. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. At a community meeting, Eleanor stood strong, pouring her heart into her story. The air crackled with energy as she recounted the dismissive treatment she faced. The crowd leaned in, moved by her passion, their eyes wide with understanding. But tension snapped when a well-respected doctor stepped forward, challenging her claims, threatening to unravel the fragile support she had built. Then, just when she felt the tide turning in her favor, the harrowing news hit: her mother's health took a sudden nosedive. Anxiety clawed at Eleanor as panic radiated through her. Would she be able to fight for both her family's well-being and the recognition that had eluded them for so long? The question loomed larger than ever. Could a humble housekeeper rise as the voice of the unheard, championing a battle for justice that could indeed change everything? The next day dawned gray and heavy, mirroring the weight in Eleanor's heart. She paced the kitchen, her fingers tracing over the herbal books that felt like they were pulsing with potential. The thought of her mother's frail form lying in a hospital bed gnawed at her, an endless loop of worry and despair. The community was counting on her, and yet every step forward felt like a leap into uncertainty. Malik entered the room, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his youthful face a blend of determination and fatigue. "Mom," he said, glancing at the herbal books, "are you still thinking about that remedy?" His voice held a mix of hope and concern, mirroring their shared struggles. Eleanor nodded, but doubt flickered in her eyes. "I don't know, Malik. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm wrong?" "Mom," he said softly, stepping closer. "You've seen what it can do. People are suffering. And think about Grandma. You can't just give up now. His words sparked something deep within her. She wasn't going to let fear stifle her. You're right. We need to take action. We can't let them silence us. With renewed fire, Eleanor reached for her phone, drafting a message to the community group that had rallied around her. They needed to organize another meeting, one focused on her mother's deteriorating health. If she could just demonstrate the benefits of the herbal remedy, maybe it would break through the indifference of the medical establishment. As the day progressed, the sun peeked through the clouds, illuminating the kitchen and Ellie's resolve. With Malik by her side, they composed flyers, spreading the word her mother's fight had become a beacon of hope for others dealing with the same illness. Later that evening, an emergency meeting unfolded under the dim lights of the community center. Families filled the rows, their faces lined with worry as they hung on every word Eleanor spoke. She recounted her mother's struggle and her discovery, feeling the buzz of energy from the crowd urging her on. Then, as she prepared to demonstrate the remedy, a voice cut through the air. This is all nonsense. A local doctor, a familiar face with an undeniable presence, stood arms crossed, challenging her again. We know what works. You're playing with people's lives with this witchcraft. Gasps echoed around the room. Eyes darted from the doctor to Eleanor, who felt her heart pound. She could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes, each searching for an answer. The tension crackled like static electricity, and there was no turning back now. What's wrong with seeking new solutions? Eleanor shot back, her voice stronger than she felt. For years you've had a monopoly on our health while people like my mother suffer. Don't you owe it to us to explore every avenue? The crowd shifted, murmurs rising like waves as they absorbed her words. Eleanor felt the shift. She had sparked their curiosity. But before she could capitalize on the momentum, a shriek from the back of the room pulled everyone's attention. A woman staggered forward, holding her phone out like a lifeline. It's my brother, he's in critical condition. We need help. Eleanor froze, her heart dropping. Suddenly, the stakes grew more serious, and a new urgency filled the air. How could she help everyone in need if she couldn't even save her own mother? As people crowded around, chaotic whispers ignited hopes and fears all at once. Eleanor's resolve was tested in that moment, her mind racing to connect the dots. Could the remedy she discovered actually save lives beyond her own family? Malik squeezed her hand, grounding her as they faced the unpredictable tide of desperation and hope together. But just as Eleanor gathered the courage to respond, she caught the eye of the doctor, who was now stepping forward with a smirk. Let us see if you can prove your claims in action. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just about her mother anymore. It was about everything she stood for. Would she rise up and embrace the chaos, or would fear tether her to the shadows? The next move could change everything. Eleanor's heart raced. Her head spun with thoughts, doubt and desperation tangled together. The stakes had never felt higher. The room pulsed with tension, every person leaning closer, their collective breath held tight. She swallowed hard, feeling Malik's reassuring grip, and steeled herself. Okay, she said, forcing confidence into her words. I'll show you. I'll show all of you. She motioned for Malik to fetch the necessary items for her demonstration: the dried herbs, the bottles she had filled during her late-night experiments, the notebooks filled with her mother's stories and recipes. As he scrambled to gather the supplies, the doctor's smirk deepened. What a spectacle this will be, he remarked, as if the situation were a game. I hope your little experiment doesn't end in tragedy. Eleanor felt her cheeks flush hot. This was a fight for more than just her mother. It was for everyone represented in that room. The forgotten, the ignored, the dismissed. She inhaled deeply, clearing her mind of his taunts as she set up her materials on the table. This remedy, she began, is not just about herbs. It's about listening to people, understanding their suffering. It's about connecting what we know with what we feel. The eyes in the room shifted back to her. She could feel threads of hope weaving through the crowd, pulling them together. Malik returned, clutching her supplies, and she nodded at him. He handed her the jars. With careful hands, Eleanor began to prepare the mixture, recounting the properties of each herb. This one boosts immunity, helps digestion, and this, she said, holding up a vibrant green herb, is known to soothe inflammation. It has worked for my mother before. As she mixed the ingredients, her voice grew steadier, buoyed by the community's expectation. I've been testing this for weeks. I need every one of you to know this is grounded in my experience, in love, and in unwavering faith that we can do better." The doctor interrupted again, cutting across her. "And whereas the science? Whereas the research?" His skepticism rippled through the crowd, causing some to turn doubtful glances back at Eleanor. Eleanor swallowed her fear. "I may not have a degree, but I have the truth. I have seen it help my mother, and I believe it can help others. If we don't seek out new paths, how can we ever hope to find a solution?" There was a beautiful silence. The murmurs became a soft buzz as the crowd absorbed her determination. Eleanor could see the flicker of hope shining in faces that had been drenched in despair. "Let us run a test then," the doctor declared, finally uncrossing his arms, his demeanor shifting slightly. "Let us see how well this works. If you really think you can save lives." Eleanor's heart thundered in her chest. The challenge was set, and the outcome loomed ahead like a shadow. Eyes turned toward her once more, expectant and anxious. She prepared to speak, to share her deepest conviction, but just then, Malik's grip tightened around her wrist. "Mom, wait." His eyes were wide. What if it's not enough? The implication struck hard. What if hope wasn't enough? She glanced around the room at the desperate faces, at the woman whose brother was clinging to life. For a moment, everyone felt suspended in uncertainty. Eleanor took a deep breath, the fight within her igniting once more. "It has to be enough. And if it isn't, we will find another way." As she lifted her chin, aware of both the love she felt and the desperate stakes at hand, she could feel something awakening inside her, a resourcefulness she didn't know she possessed. But would it be enough to save her mother? She locked eyes with the doctor one last time, daring him to challenge her again. "Let us do this." Just then, as the murmurs began to build with uneasy excitement, the emergency sirens wailed outside the community center, filtering into the room. The air thickened with tension once more. "Another crisis?" someone whispered, and the crowd shifted restlessly. Eleanor's heart sank. Would her remedy be called for again before she had the chance to prove herself? She looked at Malik, both of them holding their breath, knowing the next few moments could alter everything, not just for their family, but for the entire community. And all at once the stakes soared higher. Would they rise to meet the challenge or falter under the mounting pressure? The answer loomed just beyond their reach. The sirens blared louder, cutting through the moment like a knife. Eleanor's heart raced, and she felt every eye in the room shift towards the door, anticipation mixing with dread. It wasn't just her mother's health at stake. It was the community that depended on her, their last hope in the face of mounting crises. "Everyone, please," Eleanor called, her voice trembling yet resolute. "Stay focused. We need to find strength in this moment. Whatever is happening outside, we can only control what's inside this room." But even as she spoke, she felt the uncertainty creeping back in. The doctor's playful taunts echoed in her head, battling with her aspirations. "If you can save lives," his words dripped with a mixture of mockery and challenge. "Let us see you actually pull it off." With sudden determination, Eleanor turned back to her materials, arranging them more carefully. She refused to let the atmosphere turn heavy, to let despair take the reins. Each herb in front of her felt like a thread of hope. If only she could weave them into something tangible. Malik hovered close, his young face a canvas of worry and admiration. "Mom," he whispered, his grip still firm and grounding, "what if they don't believe you? What if the doctor is right?" Eleanor squatted to meet his eyes. She saw the worry etched across his brow, the boy who had always believed in her, now questioning. "We've made it this far, haven't we? Change doesn't come easily. We have to trust in what we know." He nodded slowly, and for a moment, Eleanor felt the weight of his faith bolster her courage. Outside, the sirens had quieted, replaced by a commotion of voices. People gathered, whispering, unsure of the emergency. Holding the mix of herbs tightly, she took another deep breath and began again. "Each of you came here today because you're looking for hope. This remedy," she gestured with an outstretched hand, "is just an extension of our care for one another. If it works for one, it can work for many." The crowd seemed to lean in closer, brimming with silent curiosity. The doctor's expression shifted, a flicker of doubt crossing his face as he observed the crowd invested in her vow. Perhaps this wasn't just a spectacle, but something more. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence, a woman near the front. What about my husband? He has been sick for too long. We've tried everything. Her voice shattered the quiet. Around her, more heads nodded in agreement. Eleanor felt the tension rise again, but she embraced it. Then let us test this. Let us see if it can bring relief. Gather everyone who needs help. Malik's eyes lit up, and a ripple of action began to unfold. People exchanged whispers, hope rekindling in the air as they brought forth those who were unwell. The room shifted from skepticism to a frenzy of determination, readying for Eleanor's leap of faith. Eleanor's hand shook slightly as she prepared the mixture, reminded of the countless nights she'd spent working in the shadows of her kitchen, meticulously crafting remedies with her mother. This was her moment to step into the light. When she looked up, there were smiles, nervous at first but genuine. Even the doctor, arms crossed but less condescending, watched intently. The weight of her task settled in her chest, yet it felt lighter than before, buoyed with anticipation. Now, all we need is faith, she said, pouring the concoction into small glasses. Faith in each other and in the healing that comes from love. As she began distributing the first cups, a wave of silence fell over the room. Each person took a glass, hesitant but hopeful. Eleanor's heart raced again, pounding against her ribs. The door swung open just then, and a group of paramedics rushed in, their faces lined with urgency. We need to assess the situation, one of them called out, scanning the room as he caught sight of the crowd. Eleanor's breath caught. Here they were, teetering on the brink between old ways and new potential. Would they accept her remedy? Would they trust in her vision? What's the emergency? She pressed, filled with dread. The paramedic eyed the throng of villagers eagerly holding the glasses, faces lit by both hope and uncertainty. A sudden outbreak in the area, he replied, his voice grave. People are getting sick. And fast. In that moment, Eleanor felt the full weight of her decision. This was at the moment of truth, where everything she believed in would either rise to meet the challenge or come crashing down. What would happen next? Would they embrace her courage or turn away in fear? The air thickened again with anticipation. Eleanor felt as if the room was closing in around her. The paramedic's words echoed through her mind, and the gravity of the situation pressed heavily on her shoulders. People were suffering, and she was their only possibility for help. Are you sure we should continue? Malik whispered, his voice barely audible beneath the swell of uncertainty. Without breaking eye contact with the paramedic, she put a hand on Malik's shoulder, silently drawing strength from him. She had to be strong. The community had come to her, ready to believe in her vision. What if they saw the light? What if, against all odds, she could be the difference between despair and healing? Please, she spoke, her voice steady despite the battle raging inside her. We have to give this a chance. People are at risk. The paramedic met her gaze, eyebrows knitted with concern but sensing the intensity of her commitment. Others in the crowd began murmuring among themselves, the energy shifting toward a quiet urgency. Let us see if this remedy is more than just hope, he finally said, allowing a moment of hesitation to pass as he assessed Eleanor and her concoction. But we need to act. We don't have much time. Eleanor felt her heart leap, a flicker of possibility ignited within her. She turned to the crowd, her voice gaining strength. We need volunteers. Those who are sick, come forward. A few people hesitated, exchanging anxious glances, but within moments, someone stepped forward, their illness evident in their pallor. One by one more joined, until a half-dozen lined up in front of her. Thank you, Eleanor said, her words spilling out with sincerity. You're showing everyone what true courage looks like. She poured the first glass, shaking slightly as her hands moved. Will it work? Someone called from the back, their voice tinged with desperation. Eleanor met their gaze head-on. It has to, she stated, belief pouring from her heart. It needs your faith. Malik watched with wide eyes, his presence a constant reminder of what was at stake. Eleanor passed the first glass to the woman whose husband had been ill. This is yours, she said gently, her voice low yet hopeful. As the woman took it, Eleanor felt energy surge through her, bolstered by the community rallying around her. The rest of the crowd leaned in closer, faces eager, eyes expectant. One by one, the glasses were filled and distributed. Each face lit up with a blend of anxiety and anticipation. When Eleanor finished, the paramedics were busy assisting the sick, preparing for the worst that lay ahead. Would her remedy help? A ripple of whispers surged through the crowd once more. Eleanor shot a glance at the doctor, who had gone quiet, his expression turning contemplative. Was he beginning to see what she saw, a chance for change? A path forward amidst chaos? The first person to drink was already beginning to show signs of hope, their eyes lighting up as if a spark had been ignited. Eleanor's heart raced. But before she could embrace that spark, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A young man burst through the door, disheveled and breathing heavily. "You have to help us. My brother," he faltered, panic flooding his voice. He collapsed. He's one of the first to fall sick. Eleanor's blood ran cold as the implications sank in. She had already entrusted her community to a remedy that had yet to prove itself. The weight of her decision settled back into her chest like stones. This wasn't just a leap of faith anymore, it was a gamble with lives. "Bring him in," she shouted, setting her jaw with fresh resolve. This moment was no longer just about her or even her mother. It was about everyone she loved, everyone who dared to walk this uncertain path with her. As the door swung wide again, a wave of urgency washed over the room. She had to act, to trust, to commit to the nearly impossible. But lingering doubts darkened the edges of her mind. Could her mother's teachings truly make a difference? Would her faith be enough to see them through this crisis? With each step toward the oncoming chaos, Eleanor knew she had to choose. Embrace the fear or lean into the courage that came from love. And in that moment she felt the ground shift beneath her, the community behind her ready to follow. But would it be too late? The door flung open, and Eleanor's heart dropped as she rushed toward the scene unfolding before her. A gaggle of anxious faces parted to reveal the young man, clutching his brother, who lay motionless on the ground, pale and struggling for breath. The chaos around her faded into an eerie silence, and her mind raced. "Set him down gently," she instructed, her voice firm but filled with urgency. The crowd instinctively cleared a space, allowing her to crouch down beside them. The brother's chest heaved in shallow breaths, a pitiful sight that sent a tug of desperation through her. "Get me some water," Eleanor shouted, her fingers already reaching for the few vials she still had left. She had no idea if her remedy would work on him, but she couldn't sit back and do nothing. This was her moment to show what her belief could achieve. Malik rushed to grab a bottle, his face tight with anxiety. "Eleanor, are you sure about this? What if it doesn't work?" She locked eyes with him, holding his gaze as determination surged inside her. "It has to," she replied, urgency lacing her words. As Malik returned with the water, Eleanor poured it into a glass, mixing it with a few drops of her remedy. The brother was still barely conscious, his eyelids fluttering at the touch of his sibling's hand. Eleanor took a breath, steadying herself. "Help me," she said, guiding the young man to hold his brother's head. Together they propped him up. "He needs to drink this." Her hands trembled as she brought the glass to the sick man's lips, her heart pounding as if trying to drum up an answer to the unrelenting silence. The movement was slow, but she felt the tiny spark of hope when the first trickle slid down his throat. She looked around. Everyone was staring, eyes wide, breaths held in suspense. Each face echoed a terrifying mix of fear and desperation. Would this be the moment they'd all been waiting for, or their time of mourning? Seconds stretched painfully as Eleanor watched and waited. The room buzzed with a strange energy, anticipation amplifying her heartbeat. Suddenly the brother's body jerked and he gasped, a deep, desperate breath that broke the stillness. Eleanor's heart soared. "Keep going. Just a little more," she urged, holding the glass tightly, encouraging him on. The sick man took another sip. And then another. The color was creeping back into his face, and she could see the tension in his brother start to dissipate as hope clawed its way back into the atmosphere. The murmurs in the crowd turned to gasps of astonishment. One by one, people inched closer, witnessing the miracle unfolding before their eyes. Some, who had been doubtful, squinted as if trying to divine the truth in the act of recovery. Just then, a latecomer pushed through the front of the crowd. A woman appeared, her face gaunt and hollow, panic clenching her heart. "Doctor, will he be okay?" she stammered, rushing toward the sick man. Eleanor met the woman's frightened gaze, her heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Everything hung in the balance, a mixture of belief, science, and love. The room was charged with tension. It was a fragile moment teetering between tragedy and triumph. "We're trying," Eleanor said, her voice steadying despite the quiet storm inside her. "Each sip brings us closer." As the brother started to cough lightly, just enough to draw the attention of the watching crowd, Eleanor felt a flicker of hope ignite in herself as well. But soon the realization slammed into her like a wave. What if this was just a temporary fix? What if the relief was short-lived? Would everyone look to her when it didn't last? "Please, God, let this work," she whispered under her breath, praying for strength, for faith, for healing. The suspense was suffocating. She had embraced the fear, but could courage alone cover what was still to come? And just as the sigh of relief threatened to settle in the room, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the calm before the storm. What would happen if this was only the beginning of trouble? Would they discover dangers she had missed? In that moment, a new worry gripped her, a worry far larger than either hope or despair. Eleanor held her breath, eyes pinned to the brother as he struggled to regain control over his body. Each cough sent waves of shock through the crowd, but in that moment of chaos, there seemed to be an unspoken agreement, a mixture of hope uniting them all. The weight of their future rested on her shoulders, and yet, she felt a flicker of community enveloping her, a warmth igniting amid the uncertainty. "More," the young man urged, desperation evident in every line on his face. He cradled his brother's head as if it held the power to change everything. Eleanor pushed the glass closer, steadying her trembling hands. "Just a little more," she whispered, her voice almost lost in the muffled gasps that surrounded them. The sick man took another sip, and Eleanor felt her heart leap with each precious drop. That's it, keep going. But just as hope began to swell within her, she heard the woman's voice again, more demanding this time. "Is he responding? You must know more than this." Eleanor turned, the concern in the woman's eyes slicing through her newfound courage. "I'm doing everything I can." The weight of everyone's dreams and fears pressed against Eleanor. She caught Malik's worried glance, his brow knitted in concern. "Eleanor," he said softly, almost like a plea, "what if he doesn't make it? What if?" She waved him silent, not able to hear the what-ifs that threatened to drown her resolve. She had to believe. "Come on, just a bit more," she said to the sick man, who had begun to produce more saliva, signs of life peeking through the frail mask of illness. She poured another sip into the glass, hands shaking as she did. The brother looked frantic, eyes darting between Eleanor and his sibling. Then, with a last effort, the sick man tried to speak. "I can't breathe." His words choked out between gasps, and Eleanor felt her heart drop. This was it, the moment she both dreaded and longed for, facing the fragility of life head-on. "Stay with us. Breathe," she urged, voice rising above the growing murmurs of the crowd. Panic echoed in her mind as she leaned closer, desperately searching for any signs of hope. A few more seconds ticked by, and then something miraculous happened. The sick man let out a sputtering cough, and a small rush of color bloomed in his cheeks. It was faint but undeniable. There was life in him yet. Then, as though abandoning its position of security, the tension in the room began to break. The woman who had rushed in let out a breath she must have been holding since the moment she stepped into the room. Eleanor's chest lightened too, if only just. "Let me help," the woman pleaded, stepping forward, urgency overtaking her fear. "He doesn't need to drink, let me get air for him." Eleanor stepped aside, allowing this new approach, but doubt flickered at the back of her mind. What if air was not the answer? They had to act, yet here they were, teetering on the edge of two worlds. And then, just as they were beginning to stabilize, the sick man's eyes rolled back. Horror swept through the crowd. Gasps turned to cries of urgency. "No!" Eleanor screamed. "Get him upright!" As hands shifted to support the brother's stance, the air clamored with chaos again. The panic was palpable, a living entity threatening to swallow them whole. Eleanor grasped the glass tightly, her vision narrowing on the sick man, willing him to hold on. What was this sickness? Was it deeper than she knew? "Don't you dare leave us now," she called out, her voice rising above the fear that wrapped around them like a shroud. She clung to the hope that the remedy was more powerful than she imagined. Deep down, A question lingered: could her beliefs really outweigh the unknown? As she pushed forward, she realized she was not just fighting for him anymore. She was fighting for every face gathered around her. Whatever had ailed him was now a threat to them all. And just as they seemed to grasp a glimmer of hope, the door swung open wildly again, sending a fresh wave of uncertainty into the room. A figure stepped in, faces turned in confusion only to find Eleanor's eyes locked on the stranger. What had just entered the room could change everything. This was the moment she had dreaded yet anticipated. Would this something bring ruin or salvation? Would they finally get answers? With bated breath, Eleanor braced herself, caught between dread and the tiniest thread of hope. She knew whatever came next would surely unravel the fragile threads they were holding onto. Eleanor's heart pounded as the figure stepped into the room, their presence slicing through the tension like a hot knife through butter. A man dressed in a crisp white coat. His hair was tousled, as if he'd rushed in without a second thought. The crowd murmured, shifting nervously, all eyes trained on this unexpected arrival. "Step aside," he commanded, moving purposefully toward the sick man. The urgency in his voice stirred something deep within Eleanor. She could see the brother tighten his grip, so desperate to keep his sibling alive. "Who are you?" Eleanor blurted, her voice thick with protective instinct. She didn't want to give up the little control she had. He didn't look at her but continued assessing the situation, eyes darting between the sick man and the chaotic crowd. "I'm Dr. Hayes. Medical team dispatched from the hospital. We're here to help." Before Eleanor could respond, the doctor was kneeling beside the sick man, checking his pulse with deft fingers while murmuring softly to calm the frantic brother. She watched, helplessly caught between distrust and a flicker of hope. Deep down she felt the rest of the world fade into the background, the urgency of the moment painting everything else shadowy and distant. Dr. Hayes cradled the man's chin, gently tilting his head back as he ordered someone to retrieve a bag from outside. "We need to stabilize him now," he said sharply. Eleanor took a step back, the weight of the glass in her hand suddenly feeling like a lead weight. Would she find herself redundant in the face of true medical expertise? "Wait. He needs that," Eleanor cried, gesturing wildly to the glass containing the product of her hopes and fears. "I found something that might help him." Dr. Hayes paused, looking at her. His expression softened a touch but remained focused. "Every second counts. Whatever you have, we can try it after we get him breathing." A flicker of disappointment washed through Eleanor. She longed to believe that her discovery, something she had fought so hard to grasp, would be the saving grace. But now it felt like it was slipping through her fingers. The energy in the room surged as a few others joined Dr. Hayes, their movements swift and practiced. The sick man lay there, still, life a fragile thread as the doctor's team focused on the task. Come on," Eleanor whispered under her breath, wishing with all her might for the sick man to pull through, to hang on just a little longer. She felt that flicker of community igniting once more, a shared pulse of hope running through the crowd. The brother's hands were shaking uncontrollably. Eleanor wondered if he too feared the betrayal of her hope. Just then the sick man coughed again, a harsh rasping sound that echoed in the silence like a death knell. "Hold on, man, hold on," the brother urged, his voice cracking. Dr. Hayes continued working, breathing techniques and a clear determination in his every gesture. "We're almost there," he encouraged, not looking up. Eleanor couldn't take it any longer. She took a half step forward, determination flooding her. "You have to listen. The mixture, it could make a difference." Dr. Hayes paused for a heartbeat, finally glancing over at her, and she saw a flicker of hesitation. "What do you mean, the mixture?" As he spoke, the sick man's breathing grew fainter, the monitor's beeping a constant reminder of the urgency they all faced. Eleanor's heart raced. "It's a blend of herbs, natural, and I believe it's the key. It brought him back before." "Let me see it," he snapped, steel in his eyes, challenge igniting in the air between them. With trembling hands, she reached into her bag, retrieving the precious glass, her heart thundering. Would this be the moment? Would she find validation in her beliefs? Or was this desperate act merely prolonging a hopeless situation? The brother looked from Dr. Hayes to Eleanor, his expression pleading. "Please, just try." Just as the doctor took the glass from Eleanor, the sick man gasped for air in one last effort, his eyes rolling back again. And with a sudden breath, the lights flickered. Everything changed. His heart rate is dropping, Dr. Hayes shouted, panic flooding the room. Eleanor felt her breath catch. In that moment, everything teetered on the brink of despair and salvation. How much longer could they hold on? Would the answers finally be revealed in time to change the course of this desperate fight for life? Eleanor held her breath, the world narrowing down to the thin thread connecting life and death. The sick man's body lay limp, and at that moment, the air around them thickened with tension. Dr. Hayes focused on the glass in his hand, his brows knitted in determination. Would he believe her? Would he see the potential hidden within her desperate find? The flickering light sparked uncertainty in the room. Shadows danced across worried faces. Eleanor could feel the weight of every gaze, every anxious breath, anchoring her in place. Please, she breathed, her voice barely a whisper. Just try it. Time seemed to stretch. Each second felt like an eternity as Dr. Hayes unscrewed the cap, his eyes narrowing as he inspected the contents. She wanted to shout, to plead for him to grasp the opportunity, but instead, her heart raced in a mix of hope and dread. Does he have any allergies? Dr. Hayes called out without looking up. We can't risk. The brother, still kneeling at his sibling's side, shook his head violently. No, please just give him anything. Eleanor's heart soared, feeling the rawness of desperation from the brother. They were all in this together, united by fear and hope, a fragile community forming in that moment of chaos. Dr. Hayes took a deep breath, steeling himself. All right, we'll try it. His voice was calm now, a flicker of trust igniting. He lifted the glass to the man's lips, tilting it just enough so a few drops fell onto his tongue. Eleanor could hardly breathe, her eyes trained on his face for any sign of a reaction. The sick man's body lay still, but Eleanor held on to that tiny glimmer of hope that had brought her here. The crowd had quieted, each person holding their breath alongside her. Come on, she urged silently, her energy flowing into the room like a prayer. Dr. Hayes watched intently, the tension in his shoulders slowly easing. Moments passed agonizingly, but then something shifted. The sick man's fingers twitched, almost imperceptibly, but it was enough to ignite a flicker of excitement in Eleanor. Heart rate stabilizing. One of the nurses shouted, her voice filled with disbelief. Eleanor's breath caught once more. Could it be? Did her belief and his expertise just blend together into something miraculous? Keep giving him more, Dr. Hayes instructed, his voice barely masking his own surprise. Eleanor felt her cheeks flush with a surge of exhilaration as she stepped closer to the brother, who was now clasping his hands together in careful prayer. As the moments passed, the man's breathing became more rhythmic. The flat lines on the monitor began to show signs of life. Each beep echoed like a heartbeat in Eleanor's chest, her heart hammering with every rise and fall of his chest. He's responding, Dr. Hayes exclaimed, the excitement palpable in his tone. A little more time passed, and as the doctor continued administering the mixture, hope transformed into a fervent belief. But just as they began to feel a wave of relief wash over them, the lights flickered again, much more violently this time, plunging them into momentary darkness. Reactions erupted in the room. People stepped back, a few gasped, and the sick man's breathing faltered. Hold those lights steady, Dr. Hayes yelled, his voice cracking under the pressure. Eleanor's heart sank. Was this too good to be true? Could this fragile thread of hope unravel so easily? She felt the energy shift around her, the worry magnifying with each passing second. Don't you dare go quiet on us now, she shouted, the urgency spilling over. In that very instant, something changed for her. It wasn't just about saving a life anymore. It was about standing firm, about believing fiercely, and about being a voice in the chaos. Suddenly a voice broke through her thoughts. Can someone get the generator? Someone called out, but Eleanor wasn't hearing the noise anymore. The world around her faded, leaving only the sound of her own resolute heart, beating for the man who needed saving and for the brother who clung to hope in desperation. What if they could save him? What if they truly could? With a shot of adrenaline, Eleanor leaned forward, adrenaline urging her, resolving to shine a light into this dark moment. But just as that determination ignited, she felt a hand on her arm. The brother, eyes wide with urgency, whispered shakily, "What can I do to help? What if he doesn't make it?" As she turned to face him, how would she answer? Would her heart have the strength to carry both their hopes? Or would they be caught in this storm of uncertainty together? The tension was thick as she clutched his arm tighter. A promise suspended in the air between them, but would it be enough? Eleanor stood in the dim light, her heart pounding in sync with the relentless beeping of the monitor. The chaos all around her faded into a dull roar as she focused on the sick man lying helpless before her. In that tense moment, she realized that she wasn't just fighting for him. She was fighting for everyone, the community, her mother Malik, and for all the voices like hers that had been silenced for far too long. Together, she shouted, her voice breaking through the rising panic. We need to believe. Share your strength. Let him feel us. The brother positioned himself beside Eleanor, eyes wide with desperation but now lit with a sense of purpose. What can I do? He pleaded, his clothes drenched in sweat, heart racing. Just stay close. Encourage him, Eleanor replied, squeezing his arm, drawing from the strength they could share. We're in this together. The doctor and medical team moved swiftly, but now there was something new, a current of hope that flowed through the crowd. Each person held their breath and leaned in, waiting for a sign of recovery. The sick man's breaths were shallow, and for each pause, Eleanor felt the room tense up again. You can do this. Come back to us, she urged, her voice rising higher. You are stronger than this illness. Malik stood close by, eyes shining with conviction. That's right, Mom, he encouraged. He can hear you. He.'s fighting. Just then the little light flickered again, but instead of fear, Eleanor felt defiance. We won't let darkness win. You will overcome this, she declared, her heart brimming with determination. Her fierce belief revitalizing the energy in the AI was in this shared vulnerability that the bonds of their community shone brightest. One by one, family members began to express their own hopes aloud, chanting encouragement for the sick man. You're not alone. We're here, they shouted, their collective voices igniting a powerful force of belief. Dr. Hayes continued to work, but there was an unmistakable shift. The sick man stirred, his fingers twitching again. His breathing, while labored, began to show signs of strength. Stay with us, the brother urged, tears streaming down his cheeks. You can hear us, right? Fight. Eleanor felt the room hold its breath as the sick man's eyelids fluttered open, and in that flutter, the hope that had been lingering there decided to take flight. His gaze met Eleanor's, a flicker of understanding traveling between them. Eleanor, the sick man croaked, barely audible but distinctly present. The crowd erupted in cheers and cries of joy. Hope had come alive in that moment. Every struggle Eleanor had faced melted away, not fully, but less burdensome. With each cheer, she felt the love of her community swell and envelop her. And she thought of her mother. Lucy had always taught her about resilience, about fighting for what truly mattered. Here and now, Eleanor realized the truth of her teachings. Dr. Hayes lowered his gaze, impressed. There was a respect shaping in his cynicism. Keep giving him more of the mixture. The energy shifted and Eleanor felt both vindicated and empowered. Her heart soaring with pride, each sip was given. Every word of encouragement floated through the room. The sick man's strength returned little by little. His eyes became clearer, breaths came easier. The atmosphere transformed from fear to unity, and Eleanor realized that they were not just confronting an illness. They were confronting societal barriers, dismissals, and the very essence of hope itself. Minutes passed, but they felt like hours. In that span, the sick man stabilized. Dr. Hayes adjusted the equipment as the cheers and cries of relief echoed through the room. Life pulsed back into him because of the blend of her beliefs and the community's unshakable support. Thank you, the brother gasped, looking at Eleanor, tears of gratitude streaming down his face. You saved him. Eleanor shook her head, overwhelmed by the weight of his gratitude. We saved him, she whispered, looking around at the faces supporting them. Every smiled face became a thread in their tapestry of triumph, weaving tightly in their shared struggle. Finally, when the chaos settled, Dr. Hayes met Eleanor's gaze, his eyes holding something she hadn't seen before: recognition. The mix worked. I won't underestimate your knowledge again. I just followed my heart, Eleanor replied simply, thinking of her mother. And at that moment her heart swelled with elation. The battle against doubt and despair had resulted in something beautiful. something that could ripple through the community beyond just one sick man. As the room erupted in celebration, Eleanor felt Malik's arms wrap around her tightly. "You did it, Mom. You believed." "Yes, and we'll keep believing," Eleanor promised, knowing that this victory would ripple through their neighborhood, igniting hope. She looked around, overwhelmed with a sense of belonging. Perhaps, she mused, this was only the beginning of a hopeful, collective journey, one that would inspire others to discover their own power. So with a heart full of gratitude and connectedness, she raised her voice. "Let us keep this going. Let us spread our hope." The voices surged in unison, echoing through the room, embracing everyone in a newfound strength, one that transcended illness, challenge, and doubt. And with that transformation cemented, Eleanor knew that they were ready to conquer whatever lay ahead together. Now is your chance to be a part of this incredible journey. You need to subscribe now to make sure you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could inspire you and others. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread this heartwarming message. We want to hear from you. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support means everything.